9.
This is our 9th monthly open mic night. So welcome everybody. I have to meet everyone tonight, but my name is Blaise. I'm one of the owners of Busybird. The other owner is Kev. He's up on the mountain of Mount Everest right now. He'll be out of touch for a couple of weeks, so I won't know until he gets back whether he's still alive, unless I get a call. So Kev is doing a big trek, and he did a big fundraiser on Possible to raise money to put together a book. And that book will help raise awareness as well as funds for CMT. CMT is a nerve degenerative syndrome which our son has, and it affects the extremities of your arms and legs, and it causes them to claw. Worst case scenario is actually a wheelchair, but it's not a life-threatening disease, so it actually doesn't get much, airplay, if you like, or funding or anything like that. So we're very excited that we're going to be able to give, at a minimum, probably about $5,000 to them to help them. So that's very exciting. We even had someone offer to do the whole design and layout of the book for free. So it's amazing all this stuff that came up from it. It's really good. So Kev's not here tonight, but I have Les to help me, thank goodness. He actually came and helped me at the vet today. I had to take my cat in and leave her there. So I was a big sook, so he had to hold my hand. So we will do some fun stuff now to lift me up. I will start with David with a poem. Okay. Please. So David has got a poem called The Troll and the Billy Goats. So welcome. Lucky dip.
My strategy was to wait for other people to put their names on that.
You can put it on the speaker there if you like.
On the speaker?
Yeah.
And throw things like that. That's more there. On the speaker. I started writing poems with my grandson who was in prep, and I wanted to write poems for children. And last month I read the story of Gingerbread Dan, which is the gingerbread man, but much more personalised. It's the true story of the gingerbread man. It's not the jaded one that people get told. It's the one where Gingerbread Dan actually lives through the experience, and he teaches the fox a thing or two, and the fox goes on to lead a much more fulfilling life as an actor, and became quite famous. And both of them actually lived happily ever after. And so the moral in the Gingerbread Dan story for young children was you don't go for rides with strangers, and for older children was really you listen to the little voice in your head that says, hang on, this might be a bit dangerous, it might be, this may not be a wise thing to do. So after Gingerbread Dan, when my grandson was in prep, I wrote The Troll and the Billy Goats after much research. It's the true story of the Billy Goats Gruff. And it's all about the golden rule, which is, as you all know, you should treat other people the way you'd like to be treated yourself. Here goes. In fairy tale land, down the road from where the fox used to sit by the river and go fishing from the rocks, there was a little wooden bridge crossing over a creek, and it wasn't used much because it was old and weak. One day, a little troll, all lost and on his own, came up to the bridge while he was looking for a home, and he said to himself, well, that's a nice place to sleep. Couldn't say it's classy, but it's really, really cheap. And with a bridge for a roof, everything can stay dry. And if I ever get thirsty, then there's water close by. And if I ever get hungry, I'll just drop the fish a line. If I clean them up a little, it'll be just fine. So he fixed a spot to sleep and a spot to do his...
I wanted to tell you about... Oh, wait a second.
Sure you do.
Yes.
No? That's okay.
I'm going to read. Are you going to read?
Oh, a little later. I'll change the ones I'm reading.
Okay, but I'll put your name on it.
Thank you.
Okay. We might have coral up.
So this is just a little section from my Tassie travel memoir, The Edge of the World. Queenstown's wide main street is dominated by several enormous hotels built during the establishment of Mount Lyell copper mine in the late 1800s. Verandas bordered by balustrades of iron lacework and timber jacked from iron roofs to shelter the pavement and shops below. I look up toward the glowering hills that fill the space at the other end. This could be a movie set, the Wild West, except Australian. Exchange a few cars for horses and it would be ready. Looking at some of the locals, I wouldn't need to go far for extras. Some of these people have never been out of Queenstown. The thought of travelling the distance to Launceston or Devonport is beyond them. I've often been told I have to see the dead hills on the way out of town, all vegetation having been killed off years before by the felling of trees to burn in the mine smelters and the sulphur fumes from the smelters themselves. I look up at the narrow road hanging from the side of the cliffs, curving and climbing its way into the distance, and cringe. I've been giving myself challenges for a while in an attempt to cure my fear of heights. It hasn't worked yet though, and there's no other way out of town. So I grit my teeth, quote some cliched affirmation about confidence in my abilities, and press the accelerator. I hug the cliff, my hands glued to the steering wheel, pouring with sweat. I can't look around me. If I do, I'll drive off the edge. I know I will. There's nothing to stop me. The caravan glides toward me from the opposite direction. I can't believe this road is wide enough for the two of us, and I wait for the thump that will knock me into the valley below. It passes without incident, though I'm not sure how close it came because I think I had my eyes shut. 5 kilometres later, my muscles screaming with tension, I enter the forest on the other side of the road.
Coral's just been, it was New Zealand that you went to, wasn't it? So we look forward to hearing some of those stories too. Marcello, can you come and read your farewell to Norfolk? Is that right? Yes.
You started that.
Yes, I will after you finish.
Okay. I read this poem in Italian last night. It's got an Italian version and an English version. And most of my work, doesn't matter what it is, it's all inspired by the Ionian Island. It's a small group of 7 islands off the coast of Sicily. And they're part of the Greek, I suppose, mythology, when all the gods were supposed to live there, and all the sirens, during the sailors and Ulysses, or Odyssey, which you want to say. But it was so beautiful, you know, especially when I left, because I left on my 14 against my parents' wishes. So when my kids wanted to leave home at 25, I said, you can't leave home. My daughter said, Dad, how old were you when you left home? You went from one continent to another. So I said, okay, go up to Queensland. she's still there, and I'm still here. And I was a bit sad because I'd been here for quite a while, for 40 odd years. Then when I went back, the day before I left, I was feeling very, very sad. And so I had my little sketch book, and I did a little sketch. And then, unbeknown to me, I really can't remember, I put down something in the sketchbook other than the drawing. And it was this little poem, which is in 3 parts, very short. And then it finished up the drawing into a, I can see much here, into this poetry book published in Canada. Because this is what I actually saw anyway. So it's called Farewell to Malfa, which is the little town where I was born. Now it's a bit bigger, and there's about 900 people living there. So I sat on the rocks and I looked. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning, early summer. It's so sad to part. Perhaps it's better not to say goodbye. Why destroy with superfluous words all our immense love that will remain sculpted eternally in the night of time? Goodbye. The wave crashes against the rocks shaped in the millennia. Perhaps one day not far away it will become calm. But the signs of its brutal force shall be there forever. So this is called Sky and Sing. The horizon disappears. The aquamarine blue of the sea merges with that of the cobalt sky. It resembles a painter's palette. We can see in the distance white splashes. Are they seagulls or sailing boats? Does it matter? Oh, they're so beautiful. Most of my work actually is based on real life events, whether it's drawing, painting, sculpture, or whatever. And I was about 11, I was rowing with another friend, who would be at the opening actually, in the island, and I listened to something, and it happened to be a German tourist, early in the 52 But my doesn't mean. I look at you in sadness, my dear old friend. Rest on the palette, my dear old brush. We painted many pictures, but never created a Raphael. You are solitary, taciturn, and sad. You too understand this cruel life. Everything turned into a cemetery when she declared, it's all over. Perhaps you forgot those happy days when life was full of laughter and happiness. Today we are melancholic and silent in company of our weariness. Dear Brush, you were the favourite, and she was so fond of you. I will admit now my jealousy when she held you in her tender hands. I'll finish when she said adieu. Today art has lost its beauty. What is the use of painting or creating when in our hearts there is only suffering? No longer we have that enchantress to inspire us with beauty and love. How can we create new forms when every colour is black? In our glorious days you were a sword, but not as life to Mars, where you were my right hand in battle when our life was hard. You have grown old like me. It's better to accept this fate. Courage. But there is hope that we will be free one day. Farewell now, dear Brush. Farewell. Thus destiny separates us. I will leave you all my memories as I begin my lonely journey into the unknown.
More of these cards up there. So the exhibition will be from the 12th of April to the 10th of May. These are some of Marcello's drawings to give you an idea of what sort of work he does, but there will be also sculptures and paintings. And the opening, we'll be having an opening afternoon tea on Saturday the 12th of April from 3 to 5. So it's an open invitation to everyone who would like to come. And Marcello has kindly donated one of his pieces from the end of his exhibition to Kev's Walk With Me project. So thank you very much for that. Thank you. Next we will have Heather. Heather's got vibrating a little bit.
Yeah.
Might move the whole thing.
The short story is called The Pamphlet, or it could be wishful thinking. It's a lazy Saturday afternoon after lunch, and Hannah is feeling dozy as she reads the newspaper. Psst! Half asleep, Hannah looks up. Oi, you, reading the Saturday paper over there. There's no one in the room. Stop looking around the room. I'm down here. You just dropped me on the floor. It's time we swept the floor, I might add. Hannah said, bolt upright. Don't look at me like you didn't know junk mail could speak. Of course she knew that. Why else do you think big stores advertise their sales? Just to waste paper. Anyway, you're wasting my time. You've been looking for a writing course to do for ages, and here's your chance. Fill me in, and I'll get my connections to send the information back to you. She reads the pamphlet. The words were School of Writing, and thinks, this is what I wanted to do. Ah, that feels good. The other one is a recipe for travel. So Nicole to do it. Ingredients: bucket loads of design to travel, atlas and a pin, one healthy bank account or easy access to someone else's, one travel agent, one ticket, luggage as desired, butterflies, camera, travel journal, unlimited experiences. Method: acquire a deep-seated desire to travel and experience different cultures. Decide when and where you'd like to go. Formulate a plan to finance this decision. Forgo all other pleasures while working madly to save money budgeted for this trip and watch bank balance start to rise. Unless, as mentioned before, you have unlimited access to another's bank account. Locate travel agent to organise tickets and itinerary. Retail therapy required as daily ordinary and overseas clients are established. Start to pack luggage to be sure everything will fit. Remove half of clothes actually packed to leave behind, and you will still only wear half of what you packed. Blend butterflies with stomach juices to give you a constant feeling of anticipation. Attend Bon Voyage party. Make sure you have everyone's emails or addresses to send postcards saying, weather's here, wish you were great. Record all experiences, feelings and other details. Sample as many Latin lovers as necessary to decide whether they are in fact the best. I'm just
going to move this because I think we're getting feedback. Just so everyone knows, Les is filming this and it will go on YouTube, so if you don't want to be up on YouTube, let us know so we can cut you out. Paul, can we have you up? Come on down. Whispers of wisdom. Whispers, wisdom? Yes.
Exactly that, yeah. I was sitting having a cup of coffee at Greensboro this afternoon and my smartphone pinged and it was the smiling face of Blaise saying her profile had been changed on Facebook, and I thought, oh, I wonder how the open mic will go tonight. I wonder what Kev's doing. So this time I tapped out, so you're going to get it warts and all. I printed it when I got home. Called Whispered Wisdom. I'm enjoying a coffee, scribbling between sips. Facebook is pinging. Blaise is smiling brightly. This has me thinking of Kev and his new adventure. My mind is racing back to my mother-in-law's stories. Such a special woman she was, kind and generous to a fault. But why am I thinking of her when Kev is on my mind? She lived all her childhood and teens in Burma and India. I'm remembering her tales of long train rides, from her home in Rangoon to the hill station of Nainital, at the threshold of the Himalayas. I wonder, Kev, if you're experiencing the exhilaration of that journey, the awe-inspiring climbs to the rooftop of our world, the fingertips of earth touching the sky, where even the faithless may imagine an almighty, where mortal words fail to describe the wonder. Buddhist prayer flags contain the understanding. Their messages of 5 wisdoms flutter are carried on the winds. Kev, may the whispers of prayer remain with you, as they did with her. Compassion, harmony, wisdom of sight, kindness, perfect vision.
I like how you said, oh, I just whipped up poem. I think this is actually worse than.
Better than Kevin.
Sorry?
Better than Kevin.
Yeah, come and fix it. Oh, thanks for that, Paul.
All right.
Natalie Thomas, come on now.
I'm a bit nervous. I haven't done this in 11 years. So this is about a shed house I once lived in. It's called Cave 76. 76 Miami Street, Hawthorne was a converted indoor tennis court. 6 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and all coming off the biggest AstroTurf covered lounge you've ever seen. It was a plain beige brick building with a flat roof and no yard. It would have been an appalling family home, but it made for the perfect share house. I lived there 3 times over 4 years. They'd arrive, check out the house and get a kick out of the great crazy wizard. And if they were there after dark, they'd meet Demagda, a gorgeous pale creature, garbed in layers of lacy black material, huge milky breasts, threatening to burst through whatever restrained them. One guy was so besotted by them that he took the room before he even saw it. He didn't last long. None of them did. Demagda liked to brag that she was insatiable. She bled them dry. But the truth of the matter, in my opinion, was that although they loved the big tits, they soon realised that the chick attached to them was an absolute nutbag. Demagda and I were friends, per se. Demagda and I weren't friends, per se. We did spend a lot of nights together. We'd watch late night horror movies, drink Bloody Marys, her choice of course. One night, after watching an entire B-grade film for a brief yet loin-moistening glance at Alice Cooper, we were pissed enough for me to broach the subject of the blood drinking. I was intrigued. I wanted to know what she did with these men. By her account, she'd entice them into her crypt, a bungalow out the back, and trade them her sexual favours for their blood. This, she said, is the easy part. Apparently the tricky part was convincing them to let her cut them and suck their wounds in the first place. To me, the whole thing was slightly tricky, or more likely insane. Nevertheless, she was responsible for the surplus in the house kitty and for the constant changeover of rent-paying fools, so we couldn't complain too much. Little by little, the inhabitants of the cave moved on. Mungo and Murgatroyd discovered that together they could make a special kind of magic and moved out into a flat of their own. Anne's well-to-do parents decided they didn't want their precious princess living with weirdos, and the chef moved to Europe, of course. Eventually, all that remained was Scott, Demagda and myself. However, before finding that the rent could become an issue, Demagda used one of her many powers to attract a new breed of inhabitants, and an influx of goths soon took over our reasonably calm household. This was fairly easy to deal with, as they were more than happy to cram 3 or 4 people to one room, thus lowering the rental rate for everyone else. Of course, the downside to this was that you often had to choose whether to fight a really freaky nude guy for the use of the bathroom or not. I had to shower in the mornings while the creeps were asleep. It was on one of these particular mornings that things got a bit crazy. I was showering before work when a knock on the door startled me. A deep voice ordered me to get dressed and come out. Expletive coming out. I, of course, told the boys to fuck off and wait their turn, but quickly recanted as a policeman came in and turned the water off for me. As I came out of the bathroom, I saw several of the living dead in handcuffs on the AstroTurf. I was quickly accosted by a woman in uniform and she ordered me to show her my bedroom. Unfortunately, in my room was a cloak, a couple of whips and a bomb. Surprisingly enough, she handcuffed me and then continued rummaging through my stuff. However, in the bedside drawer, amongst a collection of various things, she found a letter from the local church. A few weeks earlier, I'd helped out a priest in the street, and he'd sent me a thank you letter with some paraphernalia about the church and picnics and so on. Thank God for that. After an hour of questions and intimidation, I was finally allowed to leave for work. As I walked away, the cops began filling their divvy vans. When I got home that night, Scott was packing his stuff into his car. I wouldn't go in there if I were you, he said, but I did. As soon as I entered the lounge room, the goths surrounded me. They'd all been charged for desecrating the local church and was convinced that I had dogged them in. They'd seen the letter from the priest. Bloody church. It took me a while to convince them that I didn't do it. And when I suggested that maybe them being the only goths in the area might have had something to do with the raid, I got a kick in the guts, just for being a smartass. Still, it was better than being ripped apart by a horde of bloodsucking freaks. An hour later, like Scott, I was packing my shit into my car too.
Launched Untitled, which is our anthology of short stories. Now we're about to open submissions for, I suppose, the sister to Untitled, which is page 17. I'm going to get Bo to come up and tell you a bit about that. You got a copy of it? Cool. Come on in. So Bo Hillier is going to be coordinating the whole production of page 17, but he's going to tell you about it.
I'm the slightly more masculine sister. So I don't know if anybody here's seen page 17 before, but we've been running for a few years now. We came to Busybird about 3 years ago now. Basically, we're a collection of short stories, poetry and other paraphernalia. We showcase and celebrate emerging writers above everything else. So we especially cater towards anybody who's only had a couple of publications, who's never been published at all, or people who just want to give writing a go and see whether they can actually go the distance. Often they can. Page 17 is where several writers have started long careers, and we want to continue that tradition. At the moment, we are starting to gear up in order to open our submission windows for issue 11 for 2014. Now, the special thing about the issue this year will be we do it once a year. We do one print issue a year. That's not changing. But we're also doing our first e-edition. There'll be more information on that later on, but we're running both physical and digital editions concurrently. So we are stepping fastly forward into the new age while maintaining some, say, traditionalism. We accept short stories, as I mentioned before. We accept poetry. We have a non-fiction section for anybody who wants to submit a pitch or a proposal for an article, a feature piece, an interview, whatever it might be. And the cover itself is a competition. So every year we send out a little plug to anybody who can supply a cover image. There's an entry fee, there's prize money, and you can grace the front cover of page 17 with a photo of whatever it may be. So we've got plenty going on. There'll be more information made available in the coming weeks. Our submission window opens April 15th, and everyone here, I'd love to read your stuff in the inbox. I'd love to see you enter, and I'd love to share these stories with you. So hopefully I'll hear from you all soon.
So the information will be on our website too about that. If anyone isn't on our mailing list, we have a page down there where you can put your name down, and information like that will come out in our monthly newsletter. We try not to inundate people with stuff. We really only just send the newsletter out once a month, unless something special comes up and we might send an extra email. So thanks for that, Bo.
We're also on Facebook and Twitter.
Yes. And we will be slightly changing the format too, the physical look of the book. It'll be sort of a bit more
Sexy.
We'll go there. But it's still it's still a book, and we had to sort of we're trying to bring it into the new age, but we're still book lovers, real book lovers, so we're doing a bit of both. Melissa, come on down. Melissa has part of a short story.
Hello. Yeah, this is untitled, so it's fairly new. been waiting an eternity for this to happen. Well, at 18, most things you have to wait for feel like an eternity. But all my other friends have done this, except me. At first, I would try to behave and act like I knew exactly what they were talking about. I'd giggle in the right places. Within a second, I am. And I'd force myself to blush by holding my breath for a moment. I hoped it worked. I realised I was caught out, though, when they began to whisper about it in front of me. Rach would describe how incredible it was on Saturday night, and then she would turn her head slightly, her hand gated, and made a giggle. Lucy, in turn, would nod knowingly and whisper back behind her own gated hand and giggle. It had been like this for about 2 years, and now, finally, after waiting an eternity, it was going to happen to me, my first kiss. I had no expectations about what would happen during my schoolies trip. I was told there would be a lot of drinking and dealt a good drum for them. We'd met the night before on the beach. Us girls were sitting in the sand, swigging bottles, burying our feet in the fine granules. Some were mumbling lyrics about learning to love and understanding. I was just looking out at the ocean, contemplating a swim in my clothes, having down my 4th rusky. Now that I think about it, I actually haven't had a rusky in years, maybe not since that night. Kenny and his friends made a noisy beeline for us, cans of VB and premixed Jack in hand. Shirts were either coming off or they were already off as they were approaching. My throat went dry at the sight of bare chests, sprinkled with small dustings of hair. Kenny looked the oldest. He had the biggest arm muscles of the lot, and his attempt at knowing everything was something us girls really wanted to be real. He was also in front of the pack. He was the leader. Rach was our leader, and like obedient servants, we leaned back slightly, subconsciously, to let the alphas know who was in charge. That was the order of things. The leader would hook up with the leader, the best mates of the leader would hook up with their best mates, and so on and so forth. If the numbers weren't even, or if there was a preference made, it was understood who would be left alone. That was me. Always. I didn't mind so much to begin with, but when I locked eyes on Kenny, I wanted to make myself notice. But being a good servant, I held back with the others. 8 of us girls and 6 of those boys. Well, I should have just picked up my thongs and headed back to the rental straight away, but I was cemented to the sand. Staring, no doubt, mouth slightly open, breathing, definitely hitched. Kenny glanced at Rach without missing an elegant stride, and he moved past her and stood in front of me. Hi, was all he said. My dry, open mouth just gasped like a fish on land, and a strangled cry came out in reply. He grinned and held out his hand. I genuinely blushed this time. My heart thumped, threatening to escape my chest, while bile threatened to escape my throat. I didn't know if it was because of Kenny or the fact that I was too shit scared to look at Rach. I was going to be in a lot of trouble with her, and with the other girls. The order had been disturbed, the unspoken law broken. Fuck 'em.
I was driving down last night from the country, and the moon was kind of waltzing around, so I've got a poem called Blood Moon. Alright, so it's kind of a work in progress, but anyway. It's dark outside, a holy dollar floats in wisps of rejects. It grows into a blood gold moon, an enormous balloon tethered to the horizon, full of gloom, floating but still like some extraterrestrial, as if it's doom's night, a time of terror, a time of flight. It stares us down like a spaceship about to hoover up a string of cars. It floats on the base of the highway like a gigantic balloon, or a setting sun, eerie, not fun, gazing glumly at my highway run. Startled I drive, glad to be alive and safe inside. Can this be real, or is this creature alive? A luminous bulb, a gigantic dome, totally surreal, totally unknown. My cars, this is my little grimoire, which I've been working on. It's a work in progress. And when that dove hit, or that bird hit before, it was definitely a sign that it had to be lit. So, plus the Pontic's doves, of course, you know, the peace dove. So, it isn't a proper book launching because I'm still working on it. But anyway, I'll start with Kamikaze Dove. The house shudders. A young grey dove smashes into the glass, drops onto the deck, closes her pink lids, and inhales her last. The dogs bark voraciously, but then a raven, cunning as death, picks up the dove and flies to its nest, where she lies in a state of decay, such a pretty young dove, but already death's prey. And yet, though in death's embrace, I wish our dove well, and hope she finds a happier fate in some future state where agony and love no longer combine. And I think many young people, you know, they go through that time of life where it's very difficult for them, you know, and they become like kamikaze doves, and some survive and some don't. So that's the beginning. All right, so the next one is called Crocodile. So this is kind of lighting the grimoire. Okay. Lightning strikes the shadowy plain. Lightning strikes the shadowy landscape. Mercury floods the plain. Trees fall, thunder crashes, water crushes swirling branches. The level rises. The crocodile scratches its belly on the log. Jaws open, it dives into the flood, snatches prey. Jaws snap shut in the death roll. Gushing, rushing waters glide, crash and tumble, circling fallen limbs in the inland sea. On the night horizon, the sun blinks at the night sky, blushes pink, unveils the gloomy morn, the disaster of the dawn. Okay, so next one I will read. The man cleans the cottage, he lights a crackling fire. The walls trickle tears, but gradually they dry. The family walks in the hilltop garden, then visits the township in search of market bargains. While back at Weaken Cottage, the bearded ghost sighs as he sits in quiet repose beside the raging fire. Luigi puffs on his old pipe and considers where they've been. They were not being mean, it's just a big city dream. Although the storm is still lashed that cottage on the hill, frost freezes the old pipes and they could snap at will. The ghost knows it's not the neglect it may seem, but that everybody's busy with their mortgage and their dreams. Okay, that's it.
Have I forgotten anybody that may know these?
I thought you might have run out of time.
No.
You're giving me false hope, just.
Have you got a short story?
It's a short story. It's quite a long one for me. It's about 800 words. And it's a crime story. It's hiding at the moment. Now here it is. A piece of the puzzle. It was damned awkward scrabbling around down there. The damp earth had a sour smell, like off milk, and his fingers were caked with it. He could feel runnels of sweat trickling down his collar, and his eyes were red-rimed and gritty. Without thinking, he wiped a hand across his cheek until he realised he was smearing his face with the stuff. He rocked back on his heels. Time to go. Damn it, what was that bitch doing up there? She was leaning over the railing of a wire mesh fence with her eyes closed and her face turned to the sun. A slight breeze fluttered the nubby cotton of her skirt against her legs. It was strange to think that just around the corner, City crowds were surging on her briefcase. But as he lugged himself up the picket siding, she caught her breath and took a step backward. She expected a shrug, a smile, a nod to a stranger. Instead, he lurched toward her, and she could see his hands were clenched into fists. From all the noise, he might have been an irate bull on the loose. Despite the warmth, she shivered. The day grew darker as clouds massed, blocking out the sun. A picture formed in her mind of another young woman, alone, separated from her companions, picking wildflowers in a quiet glade. It was not difficult to imagine herself into that ancient tableau. With his brutish figure bursting up through a rent in the earth to snatch her down below into the depths of his underworld kingdom. Good, that got rid of the bitch. She didn't look like she was anyone, but how would you know? Now all he could do was heave himself up over that bloody fence. Just another sod in his lunch break. Might even have time to stop off for a well-earned beer on the way through. He landed heavily, still clutching his briefcase. Straightening up, he tried to look calm, even vaguely bored on the way back to his car as he jostled and elbowed his way through the mass of shoppers streaming over the bridge across the railway tracks. He was unlatching the boot when he saw her again. Damn, what the hell was she playing at? His blood ran cold and his stomach filled with thrashing eels. For a moment he stood there frozen. The bitch was leaning over the fence, looking down onto the railway line from this side of the tracks. And in that moment he knew what to do. At first she didn't realise it was him. He was just another man reaching into the boot of an old car, until she saw what he was holding. Half wrapped, half unwrapped, a black tube poking through a tattered sheer of bedspread. Reality began to tilt, and once again she felt like she had been tipped into a parallel dimension. Trying to blend in, she shrank back into the sea of beings swarming along the footpath. She had no way of knowing if he was following, and she couldn't risk turning to look in case he recognised her. With so many people milling around, she didn't think he would use his gun, but she was still afraid that he might try to drag her off the street or to follow her home. It was the first time she was glad she was so average. Standard issue black dress, long black boots, medium brown hair, and average everything else. As she squeezed her body further into the crush, weaving and twisting and trying to disappear, she could hardly believe that she was in the middle of this very scary, crazy cat and mouse game. It was as she turned around the wrong corner or crossed an invisible threshold and stepped into someone else's life. She couldn't even begin to guess what it was all about, and she had no idea who he might be. Hope was oozing and the chopping board was coated in juice and seeds as she chopped tomatoes and chilies. It was carnage and she was taking pleasure creating it. The drama of that strange afternoon was receding 6 months later, and as she thought about it at all, it seemed more like a half-remembered dream. Until an item on the evening news caught her attention.
That wasn't so bad, was it? It was worse. I'm very proud of you for getting up and saying yes. Okay, have I forgotten anything, Liz?
Not that I can think of.
That just about wraps it up. Please stay and have tea and coffee, and there's wine and soft drink and some nibbles, and just have a chat. And thanks so much for coming. Don't forget Marcello's exhibition next month. If you can't come to the opening, it'd be great if you came in and had a look at the work or passed on to someone else that might be interested. And hopefully we'll see you next month on the third Wednesday. Thanks everyone.